I don't get one by one time. And I think everybody's kind of got the whole Bernstein method wrong. And is it just me? But I think it's kind of dumb. Now, first off, congratulations to Harmony Ginger for inventing one by one time. I mean, wow. So many people use it and talk about it, and apparently, she was the first, right? Tongue in cheek. No, she wasn't. It's another lovely day here. We're taking our walk, enjoying the late spring afternoon. There's a balloon stuck in the tree. Looking at the doggies. Maybe we'll see a lizard. And we're just pontificating on whatever random thought enters my mind on these little walks. And I'm sure everybody stares at me and thinks I'm weird. So there's a lot of talk about this one by one time thing, and I tried talking about it before, and I'll be first to admit that having no sense of time and being dyslexic, I'm probably the last person to talk about it. But it's basically however much time passes in the real world, it's how much time passes in the game. So if you play for 3 hours, 3 hours have passed in the game. And if you take a week break or a month break, well, a month passes in the game, which means the next time you get back to playing, your characters have been wherever they were for a month. And now I've made a lot of jokes about it, and a lot of other people made jokes about it, like, oh, I'm supposed to stand in a corner for 6 hours because my character's memorizing a spell, or we're all just supposed to stop and wait for 8 hours because we want to take an 8-hour rest. Do you really think our characters are just going to stand perfectly still in the center of the city for a month and not do anything? Or are there ways to figure out what the characters are doing in between that month because we can't meet for real time? I don't know. People talk about it, and I'm sure people have explained it, but at the end it just seems sort of silly because it's fantasy. And why would I want my fantasy world to operate on the same logic as the real world? Time is subjective, especially in gaming, right? I mean, how many of us have seen basically what would result as a actual 10 seconds of combat be an hour plus in real time, or vice versa, an hour plus of game time pass in a few seconds because we just sort of hand wave things like, all right, we can't meet for another week, so the game's on hold. I'm not gonna whatever. That seems to make sense to me, but a lot of people seem to like this 1.1 style. It makes the game feel more visceral and immersive and realistic. I don't want my game to be visceral and immersive and realistic. I want my game to be silly and fun and about elves with sticks fighting monsters. I don't want to worry about, am I going to get my character's kid to school on time because, the game paused. I don't want to worry about time problems in the game. I have to worry about time problems in real life, but a lot of people seem to like it. I don't get it. I really don't get it. I think it's dumb. These are the kind of words that are going to get me kicked out of the old school again, but I really can't get kicked out of the old school on the third time, can I? Certain members of the old school have made their opinion of me very clear. I'm happy that I'm no longer a member. Most of you are jerks. I think the mistake people make, though, of course, is all the silly assumptions I just made, that your characters simply just stop. But the time continues. That'd be stupid to think that if you can't meet for a month, your characters are just standing perfectly still in the dungeon for a month. And then also expect that nothing's going to happen in the dungeon for the month, that the whole month is just on, the real time is passing, but your characters aren't doing anything. They'd starve to death. They'd starve to death in a week. We can go 3 days without water. 3 days at best before we start hallucinating. And we can't really go that long without sleep, so just to expect my character to stand there in the dungeon for an entire month while real time passes, because if a week passes in real life, a week passes in the game. No, there's got to be rules in place to, say your characters are doing other things, I assume that if one by one time and you're in town, then you can just tell the DM that during the break, during the next week, I do this, this, and this, and you resolve it online, or you resolve it at the beginning of the next game, right? That would make total sense. Be it a week, a month, we can't meet again for 3 months because, Pete's getting married, and Susan's It's silly to think our characters would just stand there for 3 months in the middle of town. They'd starve to death, and somebody would move them to be like, hey, dude, get out of the way, right? Because real time is still passing for every week in the game, and the week in real time. For every week in between games, that's a week in game time, right? That's the whole 1.1 thing. So I guess, if there aren't, there should be. But when you're in town, there are, you basically leave the DM messages. All right, we're in town. We know we're not going to play again for at least a month. During this month, I want my character to do X, Y, Z, and we just resolve that with texts or whatever, right? So that's the easy part. But what about the dungeon? Am I supposed to expect that my characters are just standing perfectly still in the dungeon, but real time is passing in the dungeon? They would starve to death. Or some wandering monster would come along and eat them. And then we'd meet after a month of not being able to play, and we'd all get together and be like, hey, by the way, all your characters are dead because you stood there for a month and wandering monsters came by and ate you. I don't think you'd ever get players to come back to your game. So there's got to be rules in place to explain that even though your characters aren't actively being controlled, they're not just standing there held in stasis while real time passes, because again, they'd starve to death. If we're using real time, then we have to use real rules, right? Can't go 3 days without water, can't go 2 days without sleep, can't go more than 2 or 3 days without food. So we have to assume that they're doing something, whether it be, character maintenance. What is my character doing sitting in this 10 by 10 room for a week? Well, I'm eating, I'm sleeping, I'm drinking water, and I'm scribing scrolls. Or you just generate random things that happens, But that would be unfair, though, if you generate random things and wandering monsters appear, and then you decide, I'll just play out the fight because the characters aren't there. No, I would say absolutely not. You're not telling me what my character did while we were gone. You don't know what I would have rolled. You don't know what spells I would have cast. You don't know what I would have done or said or how I would have reacted to the situation. So fuck no, you're not deciding what happens to my character while they're in the dungeon in this room for a month, because if a month passes in real time, a month passes in the game. No, we, for years it was just, if time passes and we can't play, the game is on hold. Whether it be a day, a month, a year between sessions, we're not going to progress the story. You're not here. That's not to say that there are other things aren't going on in the world, but I'm not going to have the army of orcs march through town during the month that we can't game because, oh no, your characters died because I generated a random encounter and you weren't here to respond to that. I don't know about anybody else. If that happened to me, I'd be like, well, then I guess I'm not playing in your game anymore since my character died. Fuck you very much. Yeah, see, it doesn't work unless there is some kind of mechanic in place to explain what these characters are doing while they're on hold for a day, a week, a month, a year, without placing them in danger. Because I can't imagine anybody would want to know that while they were gone, their character died. And they come back, oh, by the way, Steve, your dwarf's dead. Huh? What? Oh, and Erwin, your elf's dead. But what? Why? Because I rolled a wandering monster while you were gone. Well, you don't know. You don't know what I would have done, said, rolled. Goodbye. Okay. So yeah, I think 1.1 time is kind of dumb. I don't think I'd ever. It's dumb. I don't think I'd use it. It just seems to be dumb. But I mean, other people like it, so hey, if you like it and it works for you, great. I mean, I think, since she created it, she should probably copyright it and start making money off of all the people that are working using 1.1 time, right, Harmony Ginger? Yeah, so now the other thing you hear a lot in relations to the 1.1 time is the Bernstein method, role-playing before role-playing. And a lot of people misinterpret what that's about. And then they say things like, well, I'm going to use the Bernstein method to do that. And it's like, no, what the guy that wrote the stuff wrote it for a very specific scenario. And if you do anything else, it's not really his method. It's role-playing. You're just role-playing. You're just playing Microscope. I think you've all forgotten about Kingdoms and Microscope. Okay? So, in a nutshell, what this guy decided is we're playing war games. And in war games, we've got, I've got 50 dudes. And you've got 50 dudes. And in between them, there's stuff, landscape, terrain. And the story of the war game tells the story of 50 dudes and how they interact with each and fire and kill each other. And, take off 10 points of musketeers. Or there goes 3 points of your orcs. Blah, blah, blah. Move, shoot, move. Somebody wins. Somebody loses. So this guy said, well, what about the individual figures? What is this one dude's story? This guy with the satchel. What about this guy with the telescope? What about these villagers? What's their story? What if I entered a rule that in addition to the normal wargamey stuff, you each get one dude, a commander, a villager, one figure you really like, and he or she has his own little bits of things that they can do within the confines of the war game. So while your 49 dudes are all rolling their 3d6 to decide how many hits, your commander is maybe doing something that might alter the play, right? And then they went further and said, what if we just tell the entire war game around one dude? Okay, so the whole game, I'm only doing one dude. I'm only doing guy with satchel and his moves and how those moves affect the greater war game. Less figures I have to bring to your house, right, Gary? And then somebody else said, well, as long as we're going to do that, what if one of the dudes was a wizard? And thus, Dungeons and Dragons, as we kind of know it, was born. And again, that is just a very dumbed down, simplified version of something I don't understand. But it sounds cool, right? I mean, it basically was role-playing your response within the limited confines of a wargaming mechanic. Then D&D just took that and extrapolated it. Well, as long as I'm doing this, what if I also had the freedom to do this? Blah, 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 blah. Howdy. But the minute you start applying it to other things besides just what it was designed for, the life and times of one dude during an hour-long war game, it stops being the Bernstein method and becomes something else. Bird. So in closing, I think it's fair to say that 1.1 time, as it's described, makes no sense. There has got to be a mechanic involved in there to explain life of the universe, if the universe continues, even if your players aren't there. Otherwise, you just have characters dying left and right from thirst. because you didn't tell the DM you got a drink, or from being eaten by a wandering monster because you didn't have a chance to tell the DM what you would have done. Now I suppose I could invest the energy for you guys to actually research it, but I don't want to, because I'm never going to use it. I think it's dumb. I don't want my game to be exactly like life. I don't want my time in the game to reflect time in life. If I actually had to worry about that, I wouldn't be adventuring. I'd be just staying in town and running a business. I don't want to go out on an adventure and risk starving to death. I'll stay in town. No, I want my adventures to be silly and not make sense and not have anything to do with real world physics. I don't want to worry about the real world when I'm playing for the 3 hours once a month that I get to play. If 1x1 time works for you, again, great. I'm not insulting you. I know you think I'm insulting you, but I'm not. I just think it doesn't work for me. I think it's dumb. You can disagree with me. That's fine, whatever. No, if it works for you, great. Hey, are you having fun? Are you enjoying the game? Do you feel immersed in this story? Then what the fuck do you care what I say? I'm an idiot with a cell phone, walking in the park, just blabbing out thoughts as they enter what's left of my brain. Don't listen to me. Just appreciate how gorgeous it is today, huh? Yeah, that was the walk. Here we are at Site B. I hope you appreciate this rambling. I have a feeling since I'm going to be walking a lot this summer, you'll be hearing these. Till next time, I'm the Sultan of Sentai that is the OG GM. If you appreciate this content, let me know. If you never want to hear me talk about this ever again, let me know. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. Help me hit 2,000 subs by August 4th. Until next time, just look at this. Just look at how gorgeous this is. Perfect spring day here at Site B.